Imagine a private company controlling millions of lives, wielding armies larger than nations, minting its own coins and declaring wars, all for the profit of a handful of shareholders. Sounds like fiction or a dystopian sci-fi empire, right? But this was real. Welcome to the story of the British East India Company. The British East India Company, or EIC, began humbly at the turn of the 17th century when wooden sailing ships still plied the oceans and Europe looked east with longing eyes. Unlike any other power at the time, this was a company with the authority of a state. It could raise armies, pass laws, and wage wars, all independent of the British crown. Why India? Because India was rich beyond measure. Its lands were fertile, its cities bustling with trade, and its economy rivaled all of Europe combined. Bengal, in particular, produced wealth that would make kings envious. And yet, the company didn't arrive as conquerors with a vision of governance. Its sole purpose was profit. Early voyages were perilous. Sir James Lancaster led the first fleet, establishing trade in the Malay archipelago and attempting footholds in Japan. The English faced stiff competition from the Dutch, Portuguese, and Spanish, and initial failures were common. Yet, persistence paid off. By 1618, the EIC established its first significant post in Surat, India. The Mughal Empire, ruling 1/5 of the world's population, initially treated the company as minor traders, but over decades, the English learned the art of diplomacy, integrating themselves into Mughal politics, securing trading privileges, and gradually eclipsing Portuguese influence. By 1639, the EIC had purchased Madras, and in 1661, Bombay joined the fold as part of a royal dowry. Despite these successes, the company was still a small mouse under the lion's paw of the Mughal Empire. A failed attempt to challenge the Emperor Aurangzeb's authority in 1686 reminded them of their vulnerability. But history favors persistence. By the early 1700s, the Mughal Empire was in decline, and the EIC's foundations were poised to become the launchpad for a private empire that would dominate India for the next century. Now, let's sail north to the Netherlands, where a tiny nation dared to challenge the might of Spain and Portugal and change the world forever. The VOC, or Dutch East India Company, was formed in 1602, merging 7 private trading companies. It was not merely a business, it was economic warfare. Armed ships, private armies, trading posts, and a governance structure rivaling states, all backed by ordinary Dutch citizens through the world's first IPO. The House of Orange, a royal family without a throne, saw their opportunity. By backing the VOC, they transformed financial influence into political power, securing a legacy that would outlast armies and monarchs. William IV and V of Orange became stadtholders, managing both the VOC and the Dutch West India Company. Their influence was subtle, yet profound. Dividends and capital replaced crowns and feudal power. The VOC's power was staggering. At its peak, its valuation in today's money exceeded $7.9 trillion, dwarfing any modern company, and it controlled trade across Asia from Persia to Japan. The conquest of Batavia, modern Jakarta, turned the city into a hub of Dutch dominance in the East Indies, while millions of Dutch citizens sailed abroad as employees of a global corporate empire. But this power came at a human cost. Massacres in the Banda Islands, forced labor, and the subjugation of entire populations. The VOC, like the EIC, demonstrated the dark side of unregulated corporate power. Yet its innovations, public shares, limited liability, and global trade networks shaped modern capitalism. Empires don't just rise, they are engineered. and few empires were engineered as deliberately as the EIC and VOC. Both companies were more than traders. They were sovereign powers disguised as corporations. The EIC raised private armies, collected taxes, and administered territories in India. The VOC wielded a similar influence in Asia, supported by Dutch merchant elites and the strategic vision of the House of Orange. Key innovations made this possible. Joint stock ownership allowed ordinary citizens to fund exploration and expansion. Limited liability ensured investors only risked what they invested, freeing massive flows of capital. Financial instruments and speculation enabled growth on a scale no monarch could match. Strategic use of force and diplomacy ensured trade dominance in regions with powerful indigenous states. The Dutch influence extended across continents. New Amsterdam, later New York, inherited Dutch trade systems, financial practices, and legal structures that would shape Wall Street centuries later. London's financial markets merged Dutch efficiency with British innovation, creating global capital networks still in operation today. The human cost, again, cannot be understated. The VOC and EIC both committed atrocities to enforce control: massacres, forced labor, famine, and economic exploitation. The lesson is clear: power and profit are inseparable, and when unchecked, they devastate lives.
Empires rise, empires fall, but power has a way of surviving, not in flags or thrones, but in wealth, influence, and invisible networks. And nowhere is this clearer than in the legacy of the VOC and EIC. By the 19th century, these companies had ceased their militarized dominance. Ships no longer carried armies, coins were no longer minted, and private treaties were obsolete. But the principles they pioneered, public shares, limited liability, global trade, lived on. The House of Orange-Nassau demonstrated how capital could outlast crowns. They quietly maintained influence through stakes in modern corporations like Royal Dutch Shell, leveraging financial power instead of feudal holdings. Today, corporations operate like empires without borders, budgets larger than nations' GDPs, global influence, and the power to shape governments. The VOC and EIC perfected this model centuries ago, blending finance, administration, and strategic control to dominate global trade. Dutch innovations are still the blueprint of modern finance: the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, bonds, speculative markets, and risk management. Even New York City's rise as a financial hub traces back to Dutch trade networks and legal practices. Yet, the human cost persists as a cautionary tale. Exploitation, massacres, and oppression were integral to their success. Modern corporations, while different in method, continue to wield immense power with profound social consequences. The legacy is clear. Markets now govern the world once ruled by kings. Power has shifted from crowns to capital, but the question remains: who truly governs this invisible empire? From pirate ships to skyscrapers, from spice trade to stock markets, the story of corporate power continues to unfold, and history whispers lessons for those who listen.